when you clicked buy on that specialty espresso machine yesterday, you probably thought the brand you bought it from was going to be the one to deliver it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone thinks that.
Right. I mean, we are totally conditioned to see a familiar logo on the side of a cardboard box and just, assume there is this unbroken chain of custody from the factory floor straight to your front porch.
Which is, well, it's a massive illusion.
Exactly. It's a total secret of the modern economy. The brands you love almost never actually move the boxes you buy. They handed over the keys to this trillion-dollar invisible machine years ago.
Yeah, they really did. Companies simply gave up trying to manage logistics internally because the complexity just completely outgrew their capabilities. I mean, the modern supply chain evolved to a point where a brand's core competency is designing a great product and marketing it to you.
Yeah, making the actual stuff.
Right, moving that product across a continent. That is a highly specialized science, and it's managed by these completely hidden entities known as 3PLs and 4PLs.
And peeling back that exact illusion is our mission today. So we are pulling from some really fascinating excerpts from an article titled "The Orchestrators of North American Trucking Logistics."
It's a great piece.
It really is. And the goal for this deep dive is to shortcut your understanding of these massive systems quietly running the North American trucking industry. Because once you see the gears turning under the surface, I mean, a passing delivery truck on the highway just looks entirely different.
Oh, it completely changes your perspective.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. If the brands you buy from aren't actually moving the goods, how is all this invisible labor actually divided up?
Well, it fundamentally comes down to the ground game versus the control room. So a 3PL, or third-party logistics provider, they handled the physical reality of moving freight.
The boots on the ground, basically.
Exactly. They manage the warehouses, they coordinate the carriers, and their entire mandate is getting goods from point A to point B. They operate strictly in the physical world.
Okay, got it.
But then a 4PL, a fourth-party logistics provider, sits a level above all of that. A 4PL rarely even touches the freight itself. They design the overarching system, they select the 3PL partners, and they just make sure the whole network operates cohesively.
So, think of building a house. The 3PLs are the electricians, the plumbers, and the carpenters doing the actual, physical work on the ground.
That's a really good way to look at it.
And the 4PL is the general contractor. Like the general contractor doesn't swing a hammer, but they hire all the subcontractors, they schedule the work, and they ensure the house actually gets built without the plumbing interfering with the electrical.
Yeah, that dynamic captures the relationship perfectly. A general contractor needs to see the whole blueprint, not just one room.
Right.
So looking closely at the 3PL side, the ones swinging the hammers in your analogy, their daily reality is broken down into a few core services in our text. Transportation management is the biggest piece.
Which is what, just moving the trucks?
Basically, yeah. That involves booking individual loads and dispatching the trucks. Then there's warehousing and distribution, which is storing the product and actually fulfilling the orders.
Ah.
And finally, you have specialized services like dedicated contract carriage, where a 3PL literally runs a private fleet of trucks exclusively for one specific client. They act as their in-house delivery arm, essentially.
Which makes sense. But reading through these sources, I realized something really counterintuitive about these 3PLs on the ground.
Oh, about the assets.
Yeah. We naturally picture them owning endless fleets of semi-trucks, right? But the text points out that a huge portion of 3PLs operate purely as brokers. They don't own a single truck or a single warehouse.
Nothing at all.
How does a company move millions of tons of physical goods without owning anything physical? Like, how does that work?
What's fascinating here is just the sheer power of the network. A pure brokerage 3PL is basically a high-speed matchmaker.
A matchmaker.
Yeah, so imagine a trucking company drops off a load in Chicago, but their headquarters is down in Dallas. They don't want to drive an empty truck all the way south. That's called deadheading, and it just burns fuel without making any money.
Which is terrible for business.
Exactly. So the broker connects a shipper who needs, say, 50 pallets moved to Texas with that specific carrier who desperately needs a southbound load.
Ah, so they just connect the dots.
Right. Now, some 3PLs do own hard assets, of course, but the text notes the industry standard has shifted heavily toward a hybrid model.
Okay, so a hybrid 3PL has its own trucks for the steady, boring, predictable routes, but then shifts to acting as a broker when things get chaotic.
Yeah, it is a strategy completely built around risk mitigation. A logistics company wants to use its own physical trucks only when they are guaranteed to stay moving and generate revenue.
Makes sense.
But during the holiday season, or, when a sudden consumer trend causes a massive spike in orders, they tap into their brokerage arm to buy external capacity from independent truckers.
So they don't have to buy a bunch of trucks they won't need later.
Precisely. They avoid bleeding money paying for idle trucks in February, while maintaining the flexibility to handle the whole December rush.
That makes total sense for handling those fluctuations in demand. But let's look at the staggering scale of the demand we are talking about here. Because this isn't just a few thousand trucks on the interstate.
Not even close.
Today is April 28, 2026. The sources put the current global 3PL and 4PL market at roughly $1.53 trillion this year. Trillion, with a T.
It's massive.
And it's projected to blow past $3.1 trillion by 2034. North America is the second largest logistics region on Earth. And just looking at Canada alone, their domestic 3PL market is sitting at $20.7 billion right now. We are talking about an invisible industry that rivals the GDP of entire nations.
The numbers are wild, but they really reflect a total reliance on outsourced movement. The logistics network across North America has become so unbelievably dense and interconnected that attempting to manage it internally is basically financial suicide for a growing retail brand.
Wait, stop there. Let me challenge this, because I am genuinely stuck on something.
Okay, go for it.
If the 3PLs already own the hybrid flights, if they manage the million-square-foot warehouses, and they are the ones brokering the deals with independent truckers, why on earth am I paying a 4PL?
The middleman question.
Yeah. Aren't they just an incredibly expensive middleman skimming off the top to sit in an air-conditioned control room while the 3PLs do all the actual hard work?
I get why you'd think that, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the necessity of the 4PL becomes painfully obvious.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine you are a major auto manufacturer. You aren't just moving finished cars from a factory to a dealership. You are pulling raw steel out of Mexico, you're shipping specialized microchips from California to an assembly plant in Texas, holding spare parts in massive fulfillment centers in Chicago and Calgary, and feeding thousands of repair shops simultaneously.
Wow, yeah, that is a lot of moving parts.
Right. And a 3PL in Texas might be phenomenal at moving freight locally, but they are completely blind to what is happening up at the Canadian border.
So the manufacturer would have to individually hire and manage, like, a dozen different regional 3PLs, desperately trying to get them to coordinate with each other over varying time zones and completely different software systems.
Exactly. And manage differing cross-border regulations, highly variable tax implications, and customs delays.
Oh, customs. Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It really is. The text notes that nearly half of large Canadian exporters rely on 4PLs specifically to handle these cross-border operations. The 4PL brings structure to geographical chaos. They act as the single point of control.
So they see the whole board.
Yes. If a bridge is suddenly closed in Michigan, the 4PL reroutes the Texas shipments to a completely different 3PL heading for a New York border crossing, long before the auto manufacturer even knows there was a problem.
That is wild. And road freight is the beating heart of this entire continental web, right? The sources point out that trucking makes up over half of all logistics activity.
Circa half, yeah.
Whether it's a long-haul semi crossing the flatlands, or a smaller box truck navigating a super tight corner in downtown Toronto for that final last-mile delivery, trucks are the physical arteries of the system.
Which means orchestrating tens of thousands of trucks moving across 3 countries simultaneously requires just an insane level of communication.
I can't even imagine.
Well, if you go back just a couple of decades, freight brokerage relied entirely on clipboards, dry erase boards, and endless phone calls.
Oh my gosh.
A broker would literally sit at a desk calling down a massive list of independent truckers, asking if they had room in their trailer next Tuesday.
It sounds agonizingly manual. Like the inefficiency must have been staggering, with loads simply sitting on loading docks waiting for a human phone call to connect.
It was incredibly slow.
But the sources highlight a massive digital shift over the last few years. The industry traded the whiteboards for digital platforms that function almost like high-frequency stock trading floors, matching loads with available capacity in real time.
Yeah, the division of labor between our players is actually mirrored perfectly in this software. The text mentions 2 primary tools driving this digital shift: transportation management systems, or TMS, and warehouse management systems, or WMS.
Okay, TMS and WMS.
Right. For the 3PL, the boots on the ground, the TMS is purely tactical. It dispatches the driver, books the load, and tracks the truck's GPS.
Just the day-to-day operations.
Exactly.
No.
And the WMS tells the warehouse forklift driver the most mathematically efficient path to take to reach the specific aisle
holding the exact pallet they need to load.
So a 3PL and a 4PL are staring at the exact same software ecosystem, but they're looking for totally different things.
Precisely.
The 3PL is looking at task execution, get the box, put it on the truck, drive the truck. What is the 4PL looking for on their screens?
Network-wide visibility. The 4PL aggregates the data from every single regional 3PL's TMS and WMS into one master dashboard.
Oh. Yeah, they aren't looking at one truck. They're looking at the entire continent's flow of goods. They're hunting for bottlenecks, predicting delays across different carriers, and optimizing the total spend.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We are way beyond basic dispatch software now. The source text details how this is moving from just tracking the trucks to actively predicting the future.
Yes, the predictive side is incredible.
We're talking about IoT Internet of Things devices physically attached to the pallets themselves.
The implications that are profound. You aren't just tracking the location of a truck cab anymore. You have a smart sensor on a pallet of sensitive electronics continuously reporting its exact geographic location, its internal temperature, and humidity directly to a cloud-based system.
Which feeds directly into the AI systems the text mentions. Like, picture this scenario. An IoT sensor on a shipment heading to Calgary feeds its location into the 4PL's artificial intelligence platform. The AI cross-references that location data with a developing blizzard in North Dakota. Before the truck even hits the snow, the AI realizes the weather delay will cascade and miss a crucial delivery window at a factory.
Right.
So it automatically pings a different 3PL's TMS to dispatch a backup truck on a southern route. The human barely has to intervene.
That level of predictive, autonomous routing is exactly what the industry is building toward right now. And they are also actively exploring blockchain technology to solve a massive trust issue in this highly fragmented network.
I read that in the sources and it totally tripped me up. I always associate blockchain with cryptocurrency and digital finance.
Most people do, yeah.
Why does a supply chain moving physical boxes need a decentralized digital ledger?
To permanently secure the chain of custody and prevent a rampant, really devastating issue called double brokering.
Double brokering.
Yes. In traditional logistics, a carrier might legally accept a load from a 3PL, but instead of hauling it, they illegally broker it out to an unvetted, unauthorized carrier for a slightly cheaper rate, and they just pocket the difference. Whoa.
Yeah. And if that unvetted truck crashes or vanishes with $1 million of electronics, the liability is an absolute nightmare.
Because the original 3PL thinks the trusted, insured carrier has the freight, but it was secretly handed off to a stranger in a truck stop parking lot?
Exactly the problem. Blockchain fixes this vulnerability by creating a permanent, unalterable digital fingerprint for every single transaction and handoff.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
When a shipment crosses borders and changes hands between a factory, a 3PL, customs officials, and a retailer, every party logs the transfer on a shared ledger that cannot be secretly edited or forged.
It forces radical transparency.
Exactly. It mathematically prevents someone from muddying the chain of custody because the digital paper trail is locked in stone.
That is a brilliant application of the tech. But, managing $1 trillion of freight from a digital dashboard creates a terrifying vulnerability too.
Oh, huge vulnerabilities. If a 4PL's centralized server goes down or gets hit by a targeted cyber attack, you don't just lose data. Entire continental supply chains physically freeze in their tracks. Security goes from being an IT issue to a life or death issue for commerce.
Yeah, the data integration nightmare is arguably the biggest daily headache for a 4PL. I mean, you are trying to force 5 different regional 3PLs who all bought entirely different software systems back in 2015 to feed clean, standardized data into your master control room.
That sounds impossible.
It's really hard. The sheer cost and technical friction of implementing a functioning 4PL model is astronomically high.
And the 3PLs down on the ground have their own existential threats. The sources paint a pretty brutal reality.
Yeah.
You have intense competition driving margins down to the floor, while shippers constantly scream for cheaper shipping rates because consumers demand free delivery.
Everyone wants it free and fast.
Exactly. And you have massive driver shortages across North America causing wild capacity fluctuations. And keeping those million-square-foot warehouses fully staffed with reliable labor is just a constant battle.
This raises an important question. If the margins are razor thin, the labor is scarce, the technical integration is a nightmare, and the security risks are scaling exponentially, Why is the demand for outsourced logistics still skyrocketing?
Yeah, why is it hitting $1.5 trillion?
Well, the text outlines three major drivers.
Okay, let's hear them.
And the first one is entirely our fault: e-commerce, the Amazon effect.
Ah, of course.
The expectation of two-day or even next-day delivery absolutely shattered the old logistical models. You used to be able to ship everything from one giant hub in the middle of the country.
Like 5 to 7 business days, right?
Right, remember that.
Hmm.
Now, to get a package to someone's door in 24 hours, you have to position inventory within 50 miles of every major city. Brands simply do not have the capital to build 50 warehouses.
So they are forced to rent space inside a 3PL's existing network just to survive.
Exactly. The second major driver is sustainability. Governments and consumers are putting immense pressure on businesses to reduce carbon emissions.
Which is a good thing.
Absolutely. But reducing the carbon footprint of a supply chain isn't just about buying a few electric trucks. It is heavily reliant on complex route optimization,
Oh, making sure they aren't wasting fuel.
ensuring trucks are never driving empty, maximizing the fill rate of every single trailer, and utilizing sophisticated software to find the most fuel-efficient paths across a continent. Designing an eco-friendly supply chain requires the specialized tech stack of a 4PL.
Wow, yeah. And the third driver is a massive macroeconomic shift, which is nearshoring.
Yes, nearshoring is huge right now.
After the severe supply chain shocks of the last few years, companies are abandoning vulnerable overseas manufacturing and bringing production back to North America.
Right, bring it closer to home.
But pulling out of Asia just means cross-border trade between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico is exploding. We already talked about how incredibly complex those borders are with tariffs and customs. Outsourcing the logistics isn't a luxury for these nearshoring companies. The sources explicitly state it is a stark necessity.
We can actually see how all this complexity distills down into a highly measurable daily rhythm. The sources describe a relentless feedback loop.
What does that look like?
It starts when a shipper creates a request. The 4PL's control room designs the overarching plan and selects the partners. Then the 3PLs take over the actual execution, physically putting the freight on the road.
And then the IoT sensors and the TMS systems feed the tracking data back up to the 4PL in real time.
Right.
And once the delivery happens, it doesn't just end there. They generate a massive report card.
Well, the performance analysis is rigorous. They track costs per mile, on-time delivery percentages, and load-to-truck ratios. The 4PL analyzes the total network efficiency.
Just constantly crunching the numbers.
Every single shipment generates data that teaches the machine how to be slightly more efficient, slightly faster, and slightly cheaper for the very next load.
It is constant real-time evolution. Which brings us perfectly to the core takeaway from our deep dive today. Synthesizing all of these sources, it basically boils down to this. 3PLs make movement possible, but 4PLs make it smarter.
That's the perfect summary.
Together, they form this invisible, interdependent ecosystem, keeping the North American economy breathing.
Yeah. And for all the talk of cloud computing, predictive AI, and blockchain ledgers engineered in a sterile control room, we cannot forget the ultimate truth here.
Which is?
None of this works without the physical trucks. The trucks and the humans driving them remain the final essential link turning all this digital strategy into reality.
You can build the most advanced AI routing system on Earth, but if there isn't a human being sitting in a cab willing to drive 500 miles through a freezing rainstorm, nothing gets delivered.
Nothing at all.
The digital world still heavily relies on blue-collar grit. And that leaves us with a fascinating thought to chew on. Next time a package lands on your doorstep, think about the immense invisible digital control room and the complex web of real-world trucks that collaborated to get it there.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. As artificial intelligence and automation continue to evolve at breakneck speeds, we have to wonder, will the orchestrator of the future be an entirely autonomous digital entity? Or will the unpredictable, messy chaos of the open road, sudden weather events, and border inspections always require a human mind in the control room to make it all work?
It is a profound vulnerability, and one the industry will definitely be forced to navigate over the next decade.
So what does this all mean? It means you're officially one step closer to seeing the invisible gears of the world.